The wrench slipped from Timon's hand and clattered against the metal floor of the docking bay. He cursed under his breath and wiped the sweat from his forehead. The merchant ship he was repairing had more problems than its owner had admitted. That was always the way on Horizon's Edge station. Everyone lied about how broken their ships were until someone actually looked inside. Timon had been working alone in the lower docking bay for 3 hours. The station hummed with activity above him, but down here was quiet except for the occasional hiss of steam pipes and the buzz of old lights. He preferred it this way. Fewer people meant fewer questions about why a human was working this far from Earth. He was reaching for his wrench when he heard small footsteps running toward him. Timon turned and saw a child racing through the docking bay. The child was not human. Their skin glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. The child's eyes were large and silver, and they moved with an unusual grace that made them seem almost like they were floating rather than running. The child stopped in front of a group of tall gray aliens near the entrance. Timon watched as the child spoke to them frantically, gesturing toward the far end of the bay. The gray aliens shook their heads and walked away. The child's glow dimmed slightly. They ran to another group, these ones with 4 arms and covered in thick fur. The same thing happened. The child spoke, the aliens refused, and they walked away. This happened 5 more times. Each time the child's glow grew dimmer. Each time they seemed more desperate. Timon should have gone back to work. He had his own problems and his own deadlines. Getting involved with strangers on a space station was a good way to end up in trouble. But something about the way the child's shoulders slumped made him pause. He knew what it felt like to ask for help and be turned away. He stood up and wiped his hands on his work pants. The child was now standing alone in the middle of the bay, looking around as if trying to decide what to do next. Their glow was barely visible now. "Hey," Timon called out. His voice echoed in the large space. The child's head snapped toward him. Those silver eyes went wide. They ran toward Timon so fast he took a step back. The child stopped right in front of him, and suddenly Timon felt something strange. It was like a gentle pressure against his mind, like someone was knocking softly on a door inside his head. Then it was gone. "You can help," the child said. It was not a question. The child spoke in perfect galactic common, the language most species used for trade and communication. "You are capable. I can feel it." Timon raised an eyebrow. "Feel it?" "My mother," the child said, ignoring his question. "Her ship is dying. The main systems are failing. Everyone says it is too complicated. They say Velafi technology is too difficult for other species to understand. But you can do it." "I know you can." "I'm just an engineer," Timon said. "I fix basic systems. If your mother's ship uses special technology, then please." The child grabbed his hand. Their skin was warm and sent tiny tingles up Timon's arm. "She is all I have. If the ship dies, we have nowhere to go. No money to fix it. No way to work. Please." Timon looked down at the child's hand holding his. He thought about saying no. He thought about going back to his work and pretending this conversation never happened. But then he made the mistake of looking into those silver eyes. "Fine," he said. "I'll take a look. But I'm not promising anything." The child's glow brightened so suddenly it made Timon blink. "Thank you. Thank you. My name is Lyra. What is your name?" "Timon." "Timon," Lyra repeated, as if testing how it sounded. "Come, quickly." Lyra pulled him across the docking bay to a small cargo ship tucked in the corner. The ship looked old but well-maintained, with smooth blue panels that reminded Timon of water. Near the loading ramp stood a woman who had to be Lyra's mother. She had the same glowing skin and silver eyes, but she was taller and moved with a tired grace. She was trying to repair an exposed panel on the ship's hull, but Teeman could see from here that she was doing it wrong. "Mother," Lyra called. "I found someone. A human engineer." The woman looked up. Her eyes met Teeman's, and he felt that same gentle pressure against his mind, stronger this time. Then it faded. The woman's expression shifted from surprise to something like embarrassment. "Lyra, I told you not to bother people," she said softly. She turned to Teeman and bowed her head slightly. "I apologize for my child." "You do not need to. I already agreed to look," Teeman interrupted. He walked up to the exposed panel and crouched down. "What's the main problem?" The woman hesitated. "The biomechanical interface is failing. It is what connects the ship's living systems to the mechanical ones. Without it, nothing works. The engines, the life support, the navigation. All of it needs the interface." Teeman pulled out his scanner and ran it over the panel. The readings made him wince. The system was more complex than anything he had worked on before. It combined organic technology with standard mechanics in a way that should not have been possible. But as he studied the readings, he started to see patterns. The organic parts worked like neural networks. The mechanical parts followed standard engineering principles. They were just combined in an unusual way. "I think I can fix this," he said slowly. "But I'll need to reroute some of the connections. Is that okay?" The woman's eyes widened. "You understand how it works?" "Not completely," Teeman admitted. "But I understand enough. The basic principles are the same as any other system. Input, process, output. Your species just does it in a more elegant way." He got to work. Lyra sat nearby and watched him with intense focus. The mother, whose name he still did not know, stood behind him and gave him information when he asked for it. Her voice was calm and pleasant, and she seemed genuinely surprised each time he successfully fixed another connection. 2 hours later, Teeman closed the panel and stood up. His knees cracked and his back ached. "Try starting it now." The woman went inside the ship. A moment later, the entire hull began to glow with soft blue light. The engines hummed to life with a sound like singing. The woman came back outside, and her expression was one of pure relief. "It works," she whispered. "It actually works. How much do I owe you?" "Nothing," Teeman said. He started packing his tools. "Consider it a favor." "But, Mother," Lyra interrupted. They were looking at Teeman with an expression that seemed far too calculating for a child. "What is your name, Engineer Teeman?" The woman blinked. "I am Nere." "Engineer Teeman," Lyra said very seriously. "Are you single?" Teeman nearly dropped his toolbox. "What? Are you married? Do you have a mate? Are you bonded to anyone? Lyra?" Nare's glow turned a darker shade of blue. "That is not an appropriate question." "You should marry my mother," Lyra announced, completely ignoring Nare's embarrassment. "She is very smart and very kind. She is also very pretty. You are capable and strong. You would make a good family." Teeman stared at the child. Nare covered her face with her hands. For a long moment, nobody spoke, and Teeman started laughing. He could not help it. The whole situation was so absurd. He had come to this station to work alone and avoid complications. Now he was standing in a docking bay while an alien child tried to arrange a marriage. "I am so sorry," Nare said through her fingers. "I do not know what has gotten into them." "It's fine," Teeman said, still chuckling. He picked up his toolbox. "Good luck with your ship, Nare." He walked away, shaking his head. Behind him, he heard Lyra say loudly, "But Mother, he is perfect." Teeman smiled despite himself. He had a feeling this was not the last time he would see Lyra, and Nare, 3 days passed before Teeman saw Lyra again. He was working on a transport ship in the middle-level docking bay when he heard that familiar voice call his name. Engineer Teeman. He looked down from the engine housing he was inspecting. Lyra stood below him, glowing brightly and holding something wrapped in cloth. "How did you find me?" Teeman asked, climbing down the ladder. "I asked people," Lyra said simply. "Everyone knows the human engineer who can fix anything. I brought you something." They held out the wrapped object. Teeman took it carefully and pulled back the cloth. Inside was a small curved tool made of some kind of crystalline material. It glowed faintly with the same blue light as Lyra's skin. "It is a velocity adjustment tool," Lyra explained. "It works on both organic and mechanical systems. My mother said it might help with your work." Teeman turned the tool over in his hands. It was beautifully made and clearly expensive. "I can't accept this. This is too much for a simple repair job." "It is a gift," Lyra said firmly. "You helped us when no one else would. That means something." Before Teeman could argue further, Lyra spotted something across the docking bay and ran off, calling goodbye over their shoulder. Teeman stood there holding the tool and wondering what he had gotten himself into. This became a pattern. Every few days, Lyra would appear wherever Teeman was working. Sometimes they brought small gifts purchased with their own allowance. Other times they just sat and watched him work while asking questions about Earth and humans. Teeman found himself looking forward to these visits more than he wanted to admit. The child was curious and clever and made him laugh. Of course, where Lyra went, Narration was never far behind. She would arrive to collect her child, always apologizing for the missive. Interruption. These encounters grew longer each time. Narration would ask about the repairs Teeman was doing. He would ask about velocity technology. Their conversations became less formal and more genuine. Teeman learned that Naraya's husband had died 2 years ago in an accident. She had been trying to run their cargo business alone ever since, but it was difficult. Velocity ships required specific maintenance, and most stations did not have engineers who understood the technology. She was falling behind on payments and contracts. The ship breaking down had been the last thing she could afford. He told her about Earth and why he left. About feeling like he never quite fit in anywhere. About finding peace in the quiet work of fixing broken things in space. She listened without judgment, and her silver eyes seemed to understand more than he set out loud. Other beings on the station started to notice them talking. Aliens whispered when Teeman and Narration stood too close together in the station corridors. Some looked curious. Others looked disapproving. Teeman tried to ignore them, but it was hard not to notice. One afternoon, Teeman was eating lunch in the station cantina when Lyra slid into the seat across from him. The child looked unusually serious. "I need to tell you something," Lyra said quietly. "What is it?" "My mother's ship needs repairs again. The port stabilizer is making strange sounds. But Mother says we cannot afford to pay anyone right now. We owe money to the station for docking fees. If we do not pay soon, they will take our ship." Teeman put down his food. "How much does she owe?" Lyra told him the amount. It was significant, but not impossible. Teeman had been saving his earnings carefully. He had enough to cover it. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because you care," Lyra said simply. "I can feel it. You care about Mother. You care about me. I do not understand why humans hide their feelings so much when they are so strong." Before Teeman could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed. An automated voice announced that there was a legal dispute in progress in Docking Bay 7. That was where Naraya's ship was docked. Taemin ran. Lyra kept pace beside him, their small legs moving impossibly fast. They reached the docking bay to find Narray arguing with 3 large reptilian aliens. These were Kryn, a species known for aggressive business practices and a complete lack of sympathy. "The docking fees are overdue," the lead Kryn was saying. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "According to station law, we have the right to claim this vessel as payment." "I told you I will have the money in 2 days," Narray said. Her glow was flickering with distress. "I have a cargo run scheduled. I just need 2 more days." "The law does not care about your schedule," the Kryn said. He gestured to the other 2. "Begin attaching the tow clamps." "Stop," Teeman said loudly. Everyone turned to look at him. The Kryn's eyes narrowed. "This is not your concern, human. I'm making it my concern." Teeman pulled out his credit chip. "How much does she owe?" The Kryn named the amount plus interest and late fees. Teeman transferred the money without hesitation. The Kryn checked his device, grunted, and then turned away without another word. The 3 reptilians left the docking bay. Narray stared at Teeman. "Why would you do that?" "That was all your savings." "Because I wanted to," Teeman said. "You needed help." "I could help. It's that simple." "Nothing is that simple," Narray whispered. But she did not look angry. She looked overwhelmed and grateful, and something else Teeman could not quite identify. "Thank you," Lyra said softly. Their glow was steady and warm. "You are a good person, Engineer Teeman." "About that port stabilizer?" Teeman said, changing the subject because the way Narray was looking at him made his chest feel tight. "Let me take a look at it." Narray shook her head. "I cannot ask you to work for free again." "Then don't ask." "I'm offering." They stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Narray nodded. "Then please come inside. I will make tea. It is the least I can do." The inside of Narray's ship was beautiful. The walls glowed softly with bioluminescent patterns. Everything was curved and organic-looking, as if the ship had been grown rather than built. Teeman fixed the stabilizer while Narray made tea in a small galley kitchen. Lyra sat nearby and told him stories about Valathi customs and traditions. He learned that Valathi mate for life, that they choose their partners based on emotional compatibility rather than practical concerns, that their children often have a say in family decisions because Valathi believe children understand feelings more purely than adults. When the repair was finished, Narray insisted he stay for dinner. Teeman agreed, telling himself it would be rude to refuse. But the truth was, he did not want to leave. The ship felt warm and welcoming in a way his small rented room on the station never had. They ate together around a small table. The food was strange but delicious. Narray told him about her late husband, and Teeman was surprised by how much it hurt to see the sadness in her eyes. He told her about his family back on Earth, and how they had not understood his need to leave. "You are searching for something," Narray said quietly. "I can feel it. A place where you belong." "Maybe," Teeman admitted. "I thought I wanted to be alone. But lately, I'm not so sure." Lyra, who had been unusually quiet during dinner, suddenly spoke up. "You belong with us, Lyra," Narray said gently. "It is true, Mother." He feels right. The bond is already forming. Can you not sense it? Narray's glow shifted to that darker blue again. "Teeman does not understand what you mean by that." "Then explain it to him," Lyra said stubbornly. Narray looked at Teeman apologetically. "Valathi are empathic. We can sense emotions and connections between people. Lyra is young and sometimes speaks without thinking. They feel a bond forming between you and our family. But bonds take time and mutual agreement. They cannot be forced." "What kind of bond?" Teeman asked. "The kind that makes a family," Lyra said before Narray could answer. "You would be good for each other. Good for all of us." Why do adults make everything so complicated? Teeman should have felt uncomfortable. This was moving too fast. He barely knew these people. But sitting in that warm ship with the two of them, feeling more at home than he had in years, he could not bring himself to leave. "I should go," he said. But he did not stand up. "Or you could stay a little longer," Narray said softly. "If you want." Teeman stayed. They talked until late into the station's night cycle. And when he finally left to go back to his room, he knew something had changed. Lyra had been right. A bond was forming. And Teeman was not sure he wanted to stop it. The message came to Narray early in the morning. A transport company needed someone to haul medical supplies through the Orion Cluster, a region of space known for pirate activity. Most cargo runners refused jobs there, but the payment was 3 times the normal rate. It was enough money to clear all of Narray's debts and give her a financial cushion for months. She told Teeman about it over breakfast in the station cantina. He had been spending most of his free time with her and Lyra over the past few weeks. It felt natural now, like this had always been his routine. "You can't take that job," Teeman said immediately. "The Orion Cluster is too dangerous." "I do not have a choice," Narray replied. "This is the opportunity I have been waiting for. With this money, I can stop worrying about every repair and every docking fee. Lyra deserves better than living with constant fear that we will lose everything." "Then let me come with you?" "You need an engineer, and I know combat systems. I can help if things go wrong." Narray shook her head. "I cannot ask you to risk your life for us." "You're not asking. I'm offering." They stared at each other across the table. Finally, Narray sighed. "You are very stubborn for someone who claims to prefer working alone." "I learned it from someone," Teeman said. And Narray smiled despite herself. 2 days later, they departed from Horizon's Edge as part of a convoy of 5 ships. Teeman had moved his tools and belongings onto Narray's ship temporarily. Lyra was thrilled to have him aboard. They showed him every corner of the ship and explained how all the organic systems worked. The first week of travel was peaceful. Teeman fell into a routine of maintenance work and meals with Narray and Lyra. He taught Lyra about Earth animals and human history. Lyra taught him basic Velathi meditation techniques that helped calm his mind. Narray taught him how to read the ship's biosigns and understand when something was wrong. In the evenings, after Lyra went to sleep, Teeman and Narray would sit in the small observation deck and watch the stars. They talked about everything and nothing, about dreams they had given up on and dreams they still held, about loss and hope and fear and courage. One night, Narray reached out and took his hand. The touch sent that familiar tingle through his skin. "I can feel your emotions when we touch," she said quietly. "Not your thoughts, just the feelings beneath them. Is that uncomfortable for you?" "No," Teeman said honestly. "It's different, but not bad. What do you feel right now?" Narray asked. Her silver eyes reflected the starlight. "Scared," Teeman admitted. "Happy, confused, like I'm standing on the edge of something big, and I'm about to jump. I feel the same way." Narray moved closer to him. "My husband has been gone for 2 years. I thought I would never want anyone else. Velathi mate for life, and when that life ends, we are supposed to honor their memory forever. But Lyra was right. There is a bond forming between us. I can feel it getting stronger every day." "Is that okay?" Teeman asked. "Culturally, I mean. For you to feel this way?" "Lyra chose you," Narray said simply. "In Velathi culture, when a child chooses someone to join the family, it is considered a sign. Children are believed to sense these things more clearly than adults. Their hearts are not clouded by fear or doubt." "And what does your heart say?" Teeman asked. Instead of answering with words, Narray leaned in and kissed him. It was gentle and tentative and perfect. When they pulled apart, both of them were glowing slightly. Teeman looked down at his hands in surprise. His human skin had taken on a faint blue shimmer. "That is the bond," Narray whispered. "It is beginning to manifest physically. You are becoming part of our family." Before Teeman could respond, alarms shrieked through the ship. Red lights flashed. Narray ran to the control panel while Teeman grabbed the weapon locker. Through the observation window, they saw ships emerging from behind an asteroid field. 5 vessels with weapons charged, moving fast toward the convoy. Pirates thought the convoy's communication channel erupted with panicked voices. The pirates were targeting the largest transport first. 2 ships in the convoy immediately broke formation and jumped to faster-than-light speed, abandoning the others. That left 3 ships, including Narray's, to face 5 pirate vessels. "Get Lyra to the safe room," Narray commanded. Her voice was steady, but Teeman could see her hands shaking. He ran to Lyra's sleeping quarters. The child was already awake, eyes wide with fear. "Are we going to die?" "No," Teeman said firmly. He picked Lyra up and carried them to the reinforced safe room in the ship's center. "Stay here no matter what happens. Do not come out until your mother or I come to get you." "Promise you will protect Mother," Lyra said, grabbing his shirt. "I promise." Teeman sealed the safe room and ran back to the control deck. Through the window, he saw one of the convoy ships explode in a ball of fire. The pirates were not trying to disable vessels. They were destroying them. "We need to fight back," Teeman said. "Running won't work. They're faster than us." "This is a cargo ship," Narray said desperately. "We have basic weapons, but nothing that can fight 5 pirate vessels." Then, we don't fight fair. Teeman had learned military tactics during his mandatory service on Earth. Humans were good at warfare because they were creative and willing to take risks that other species considered insane. Right now, that was exactly what they needed. He took control of the weapon systems while Narray handled piloting. The pirates assumed the cargo ships would try to run or surrender. They did not expect one to turn around and fly directly at them. "What are you doing?" One of the other convoy captains shouted over the communication channel. "Trust me," Teeman said. He waited until they were almost on top of the lead pirate ship. Then he fired all weapons at once, not at the pirate vessel, but at a large asteroid nearby. The asteroid exploded into thousands of fragments that shot out in all directions like shrapnel. The pirate ships scattered to avoid the debris. In the confusion, Teeman had Narray fly through the gap in their formation. He fired at the engines of 2 pirate ships as they passed, disabling them. The other convoy ships, seeing the opportunity, followed Narray's ship through the gap, but the remaining 3 pirate vessels recovered quickly. They pursued the fleeing convoy. One of them locked weapons on Narray's ship. "Hold on," Teeman shouted. He overloaded one of the cargo containers and ejected it directly into the path of the pursuing ship. The container exploded, and the pirate vessel had to swerve to avoid it. But the maneuver cost them time. The other pirate ships were closing in. A blast hit Narray's ship. The impact threw Teeman against the wall. Pain exploded in his shoulder. The ship's systems flickered. Through the ringing in his ears, Teeman heard Narray crying out. He pulled himself up and saw she was still at the controls, but bleeding from a cut on her head. "We cannot take another hit like that," Narray said. Her voice was tight with pain. Teeman looked at the sensor readings. One of the other convoy ships had powerful shields but weak weapons. If they could coordinate properly, they might have a chance. He opened the communication channel. "Cargo ship Delta, this is Teeman on the Velothi vessel. I need you to do exactly what I say. Who put a human in charge?" the Delta captain demanded. Someone who knows how to fight, Teeman said. Now listen. Fly alongside us and extend your shields to cover both ships. We will provide weapons fire for both of us. The third ship, you focus on speed and get the medical supplies to safety. There was a pause. Then the Delta captain said, That is a terrible plan. It's the only plan we have. Fine, but if we die, I am blaming you. The three ships coordinated as Teeman directed. It was messy and chaotic, but slowly the tide turned. Between Teeman's aggressive tactics and the combined efforts of the convoy, they managed to disable another pirate ship and damage the remaining two enough that they retreated when the danger finally passed. Teeman collapsed into a chair. His shoulder was definitely broken. He could not lift his right arm. Narration stumbled over to him. Blood was still running down her face, but she ignored it. She knelt in front of him and took his face in her hands. You saved us. You saved all of us. We saved each other, Teeman said. His vision was getting fuzzy. The safe room door opened, and Lyra ran out. They crashed into both Narration and Teeman, wrapping their arms around them both. All three of them sat there on the floor of the control deck, holding each other and shaking with relief and fear and something deeper. I thought I was going to lose you both, Lyra whispered. You did not, Narration said firmly. She looked at Teeman. And you will not. We are a family now. That means we protect each other. Always. Teeman wanted to argue that it was too soon to call them a family, that they barely knew each other. But as he sat there with Naration's hand in his and Lyra's arms around them both, he realized Lyra had been right from the very beginning. They already were a family. The bond was not just forming anymore. It was real. The medical supplies reached their destination safely. The payment cleared, and suddenly Narration had more money than she had seen in 2 years. But the celebration was short-lived. 3 days after they returned to Horizon's Edge, a message arrived that changed everything. Teeman was helping Narration organize her new financial accounts when her communication device chimed. She looked at the sender identification and went very still. Her glow dimmed almost completely. What is it? Teeman asked. My former husband's family, Narration said quietly. They want to meet with me on Velathis. Our homeworld. Is that bad? Narration did not answer immediately. She opened the message and read it carefully. Her hands were shaking. They are invoking their right to petition for custody of Lyra. They believe I am not providing adequate care. They want to take my child away. Teeman felt his blood go cold. Can they do that? Velathi law gives extended family the right to petition if they believe a child is in danger or being raised improperly. My husband's mother, Hannah, is an elder. She has significant influence. If she argues that I am putting Lyra in danger by running cargo through dangerous space, the council might listen. But you are doing it to provide for Lyra, to give them a better life. That may not matter. Narration sat down heavily. And there is something else. The message mentions you. They know about the human engineer who travels with us. They know about the bond that is forming. Let me guess. They think a human has no place in a Velathi family. Narration nodded. Many of our people are traditional. They believe in preserving our culture and bloodlines. A human bonding with a Velathi is extremely rare. Some would call it wrong. What do you want to do? Teeman asked. I have to go, Narration said. If I refuse, they will interpret it as guilt. I have to face the council and defend my choices. Defend our family. She looked at him with those silver eyes. Will you come with me? Of course. They told Lyra that evening. The child took the news with surprising calmness. Grandmother Hannah wants to take me away? She believes she is doing what is best for you, Narration said carefully. She loved your father very much. When he died, she lost her son. She is afraid of losing you too. But I do not want to go with her, Lyra said. I want to stay with you and Timon. Then we will fight for that, Timon said. All of us together. The journey to Valathis took 5 days. Timon spent the time learning everything he could about Velathi culture and law. Narray taught him the proper greetings and gestures. She explained the significance of different glow patterns and what they communicated. She warned him that the council would test him and judge him harshly. They will try to prove you are not worthy of our family, Narray said. They will say humans are too violent, too aggressive, too different. They will use everything they can against us. Then we will prove them wrong, Timon said. When they finally arrived at Valathis, Timon understood why Narray had been nervous. The planet was breathtakingly beautiful. Cities glowed with soft light that seemed to come from the buildings themselves. The air itself seemed to shimmer with color. Everything was organic and flowing, as if the entire civilization had grown naturally from the Earth. They were met at the spaceport by representatives from the council. 3 Velathi with formal robes and stern expressions. They barely acknowledged Timon. They looked at Narray with something like pity. Elder Hana awaits you at the Hall of Judgment, one of them said. The hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. That night, they stayed in a small residence near the hall. Lyra could not sleep. They kept coming into the room where Timon and Narray were reviewing documents and arguments. What if they take me away? Lyra asked. What if I never see you again? Timon knelt down in front of the child. That is not going to happen. I promise you. You cannot promise that, Lyra said. You are human. You do not understand how things work here. Maybe not, Timon admitted. But I understand this. Your mother and I love you. We will fight for you with everything we have. And humans are very good at fighting when they have something worth protecting. The hearing began at dawn. The Hall of Judgment was a massive circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the sky above. Council members sat in a ring around the center where Narray, Timon, and Lyra stood. Elder Hana sat in the position of honor, elevated above the others. She was older than Narray, with skin that glowed silver instead of blue. Her eyes were sharp and cold. When she looked at Timon, he felt that pressure against his mind again. But this time, it was not gentle. It felt like she was trying to push her way inside his thoughts. He pushed back. He had learned some basic mental shielding techniques from Narray during the journey. It was not much, but it was enough to resist the intrusion. Elder Hannah's eyes narrowed. This council has been called to determine the welfare of the child Lyra, she announced. Her voice echoed through the hall. It has come to our attention that Lyra's mother, Narray, has been engaging in dangerous activities while in the care of a human. Furthermore, it appears that Narray intends to bond with this human permanently, which would make him a legal guardian of the child. Murmurs rippled through the council. Timon felt their judgment like weight pressing down on him. I am formally petitioning for custody of my grandchild, Hana continued. I believe Narray has shown poor judgment and put Lyra at unacceptable risk. I can provide a stable home, proper education, and immersion in our culture. The human cannot offer any of these things. The human has a name, Timon said loudly. It's Timon, and I have protected Lyra with my life. The council members looked shocked that he had spoken. Hannah's glow flickered with anger. You are not yet bonded to this family. You have no right to speak here. Then I request that right, Timon said. I request to undergo the trial of bonds. The hall went completely silent. Even Narray looked at him in shock. Lyra's glow brightened with hope. You do not know what you are asking, Hana said coldly. The trial of bonds is a sacred ceremony. It requires telepathic ability. Humans do not have this gift. Then it should be an easy way to prove I do not belong here, Timon said. If I fail, you get what you want. If I succeed, you have to acknowledge that I am worthy of this family. The council members looked at each other. Finally, one of them spoke. The human has invoked his right to the trial. We must grant it. Hannah looked furious, but she nodded stiffly. Very well. We will conduct the trial at sunset. Prepare yourself, human. You will fail. The trial of bonds took place in a sacred grove outside the city. Ancient trees with glowing leaves surrounded a pool of crystal clear water. The entire council attended, along with hundreds of curious citizens who wanted to see the human attempt their most sacred. Ceremony.Taemi stood at the edge of the pool with Narray and Lyra beside him. A priest explained the trial. Timon would have to enter the water and open his mind completely. The pool would test his intentions and his heart. If he truly loved Narray and Lyra with pure intent, the water would accept him. If not, it would reject him painfully. The catch was that the process required telepathy. The person being tested had to project their emotions into the water for it to read. Humans had no natural telepathic ability. You do not have to do this, Narray whispered. We can find another way. There is no other way, Timon said. This is what they need to see. He stepped into the pool. The water was cold and immediately began to glow. He felt that familiar pressure against his mind, but this time it was overwhelming. It felt like someone was pulling his thoughts out of his head and examining them, one by one. Timon could not project his emotions telepathically, but he could feel them. He thought about the first time he saw Lyra desperately asking for help. He thought about Narray's laugh when he told her stories about Earth. He thought about sitting in the observation deck watching stars together. He thought about holding them both after the pirate attack, promising to protect them. He felt all of it as strongly as he could. He let the emotions fill him completely. Love, fear, hope, determination. The desperate need to keep this family together because they had become his. Home. The water grew brighter, brighter, so bright that people watching had to shield their eyes. Timon felt something inside him open, like a door he never knew existed. Suddenly, he could sense Narray's emotions and Lyra's as clearly as his own. He could feel their love for him, their fear, their hope. The water exploded upward in a column of light. When it settled, Timon was glowing. His human skin shimmered with the same blue light as Narray and Lyra. The bond was no longer just forming. It was complete. He stumbled out of the pool. Narray caught him and held him tight. Lyra wrapped around both of them. You did it, Lyra whispered. You really did it. Elder Hannah stood frozen, staring at Timon. The council members looked equally stunned. This should not have been possible. The water has accepted him, the priest announced. The bond is recognized as true. By our laws, this human is now family. Timon looked at Hannah. I am not trying to replace your son. I am trying to honor what he started. He loved Narray and Lyra. So do I. That should be enough. For a long moment, Hannah said nothing. Then, slowly, her glow softened. My son chose well when he chose Narray, and Lyra has chosen well with you. Perhaps I have been letting grief cloud my judgment. She approached them slowly. She looked at Timon for a long moment, and this time when he felt pressure against his mind, it was gentle, almost kind. You truly love them, she said quietly. I can feel it. Very well. I withdraw my petition. Lyra stays with her mother, and with you. Relief washed through Timon so strongly he almost collapsed again. Lyra was crying happy tears. Narray was holding him like she would never let go. The council formally dismissed the case. As they left the grove, other Velothi approached Timon cautiously. Some touched his hand briefly, feeling the bond for themselves. Others simply bowed their heads in respect. That night, back at the small residence, the three of them sat together in comfortable silence. "What happens now?" Lyra asked. "Now," Narray said, "we go home. Together, as a family." Teeman looked at them both and realized something. He had spent years searching for a place where he belonged. He had traveled across the galaxy looking for it. And in the end, he found it in the most unexpected place. Not a location, not a planet, but with these two people who had chosen him just as much as he had chosen them. The bonding ceremony took place 1 week after the trial. Narray had wanted to wait longer, to give Teeman time to truly understand what he was committing to. But Teeman insisted they do it soon. He had already made his choice. Waiting would not change anything. The ceremony was held in the same sacred grove where the trial had taken place. This time, though, the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of hostile council members and skeptical citizens, the grove was filled with well-wishers. Other Velothi families who had heard about the human who passed the trial, merchants from Horizon's Edge Station who had worked with Teeman and Narray, even a few other humans who lived in the sector came to witness the historic event. Elder Hannah attended as well. She had spent the past week getting to know Teeman properly. They had long conversations about her son, about Velothi traditions, and about what it meant to be a family. Slowly, her coldness had melted. She still had moments of sadness when she looked at Teeman, seeing the grandchild's guardian, who was not her son. But she had begun to accept that this was not a replacement. It was a continuation. The ceremony itself was beautiful and strange. Teeman wore traditional Velothi robes that shimmered with woven light. Narray wore white garments that made her glow seem even brighter. Lyra stood between them, wearing the ceremonial sash of a family witness. The priest who conducted the ceremony explained each step to Teeman in both Velothi and Galactic Common. First, there was the sharing of light. Teeman and Narray each placed their hands in the sacred pool. The water began to glow, responding to their emotions. Their hands touched beneath the surface, and the light intensified. "Feel the bond," the priest instructed. "Let it flow between you. Let it join what was separate into one family." Teeman closed his eyes and felt that strange telepathic connection he had discovered during the trial. He could sense Narray's emotions clearly now. Her love, her hope, her lingering grief for her first husband, and her joy at this new beginning. He sent his own emotions back to her. His commitment, his promise to protect them, his gratitude for being chosen. The water around their hands began to swirl. Patterns of light spread across the surface. When they opened their eyes, both of them were crying dot. Next came the words. Each of them had to speak a vow in the ancient Velothi language. Narray had spent days teaching Teeman the pronunciation. His accent was terrible, and several people in the audience smiled at his efforts. But when he finished speaking, Narray squeezed his hand tight. "You said it perfectly," she whispered, even though they both knew he had not. But the meaning behind the words was perfect, and that was what mattered. Lyra stepped forward next. In Velothi culture, the child's role in a bonding ceremony was crucial. They had to accept the new family member publicly and formally. "I, Lyra, child of Narray, and the late Byung, choose Teeman as family," Lyra said clearly. Their young voice carried across the grove. "I choose him as guardian, as teacher, as protector. I choose him because my heart knows he belongs with us. I choose him because he chose us first." The priest nodded approvingly. "Then it is witnessed and accepted. This bond is recognized by our people and blessed by our traditions. You are now a family in the eyes of Velothis." The ceremony concluded with a celebration. Tables had been set up around the grove with food from both Velothi and human cultures. Music played, a strange but pleasant combination of Velothi harmonics and earth instruments. People danced and talked and congratulated the new family. Elder Hannah approached them during the celebration. She held out a small box to Timon. Inside was a pendant made of the same glowing crystal as the adjustment tool Lyra had given him months ago. "This belonged to my son," Hannah said quietly. "He wore it every day. I want you to have it. Not to replace him, but to remember him. You are part of his legacy now, part of what he created and loved." Timon took the pendant carefully. "I will honor his memory. I promise you that." Hannah nodded. Then, surprising everyone, she pulled Timon into a brief embrace. "Welcome to the family," she whispered. The celebration continued late into the night. Timon danced with Narration under the glowing trees. He lifted Lyra onto his shoulders so they could see everything. He talked with the other humans who attended and realized how many of them had similar stories. Humans who had found families and homes among the stars in unexpected places. One human, a merchant named Jiwan, pulled him aside during the celebration. "You know what you have done here, right?" Jiwan said. "You have opened a door. Other humans will see this and realize they can build lives out here, not just as workers or soldiers, but as real members of these communities. You are proof that we belong." "I just fell in love," Timon said simply. "It was not that complicated." "That is exactly what makes it revolutionary," Jiwan said with a smile. "The best changes always start that simply." 6 months later, Timon stood in the docking bay of Horizon's Edge Station, watching as workers loaded cargo onto the ship. Their ship. It bore a new name now, painted in both Velothi script and human letters. New beginnings. The family business had grown significantly. With Nare's knowledge of trade routes and Timon's engineering skills, they had become one of the most reliable cargo services in the sector. They had hired 2 additional crew members and were considering expanding to a second ship. But the biggest change was not professional. It was personal. Nare was pregnant. The medical scans had confirmed it 3 weeks ago. A child, the first human Velothi hybrid ever recorded. The doctors were fascinated and slightly concerned. Nobody knew exactly how the biology would work. But the child was healthy and growing normally, a perfect blend of both their genetic codes. Lyra was thrilled. They spent hours every day talking to Nare's stomach, telling the unborn baby about their ship and their family and all the adventures they would have together. They had already started making plans for how to be the best older sibling in the galaxy. "Stop worrying," Nare said, coming up behind Timon and wrapping her arms around him. "I can feel your anxiety from across the station." "I am not worried," Timon lied. "Yes, you are. You are terrified about being a father, about whether you will be good enough, about whether the child will be healthy." Timon sighed. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to me." Nare rested her head against his back. "You will be a wonderful father. You already are with Lyra. This will be no different. This is completely different. This child is half me. What if I mess it up? Then we will figure it out together. That is what family does." Lyra ran over to them, glowing bright with excitement. "Timon, mother. Come look. There is a new ship in the docking bay. The crew are asking about cargo services. They heard about the human Velothi family and specifically wanted to hire us." They followed Lyra across the docking bay. More and more often, this happened. People heard about their unusual family and wanted to work with them. Some were curious. Others were supportive. A few were looking for hope that they could find similar acceptance in the galaxy. Last week, a young Velothi had contacted Nare asking for advice. They had fallen in love with a member of another species and did not know how to tell their traditional family. Nare had spent hours talking with them, sharing her own story and offering guidance. It had made Teeman realize that they had become more than just a family. They had become a symbol. That afternoon, they received a message from the Galactic Council. It was an official request for Teeman to serve as a cultural advisor for human integration programs. The Council wanted to help more humans settle in alien communities and build lasting relationships with other species. They believed Teeman's experience made him uniquely qualified to guide these efforts. "You should do it," Narration said after they read the message together. "It would mean traveling more, taking time away from the business, away from you and Lyra and the new baby. It would also mean helping other people find what we found," Narration countered. "How many humans are out there right now feeling lost and alone like you were? How many are looking for a place to belong? You could show them it is possible." Teeman thought about it. He thought about the merchant Yuan's words at their bonding ceremony. He thought about the young Ve'alathi who had asked Narration for advice. He thought about all the ways their family had changed, not just their own lives, but the lives of people around them. "Okay," he said finally, "but only part-time. Family comes first." "Family always comes first," Narration agreed. That evening, they gathered in the observation deck of their ship like they had so many times before. Lyra sat between them, already half asleep. Narration leaned against Teeman, his hand resting on her stomach where their child grew. The stars stretched out endlessly before them. "Do you ever regret it?" Narration asked quietly. "Leaving Earth? Ending up so far from where you started?" "Never," Teeman said honestly. "I spent years thinking I was looking for a place. But what I really needed was a family. People who chose me and let me choose them back. I am glad Lyra was so insistent," Narration said with a soft laugh. "I do not know if I would have had the courage to approach you otherwise." "I would have found a way," Teeman said. "Somehow. You two were too important to let go." Lyra stirred slightly. "Stop talking and watch the stars," they mumbled sleepily. "That is what we do in the observation deck." Teeman and Narration smiled at each other over the child's head. They fell silent and watched the stars like Lyra instructed. But Teeman was not really seeing the stars. He was thinking about how strange and wonderful his life had become. A year ago, he had been alone, fixing ships for strangers and keeping everyone at a distance. Now he had a wife, a child, another child on the way, and even a grandmother-in-law who had come to accept him. He had a business, a purpose, and a community that valued him, all because one determined child had looked at him and decided he was worth having in their family, all because he had been brave enough to say yes when Lyra asked that simple, strange question, "Human, are you single?" Months later, Teeman attended a gathering of mixed-species families on Horizon's Edge Station. There were dozens of them now, representing unions between humans and at least 10 different alien species. Some had met the way he and Narration had, through chance and circumstance. Others had grown up in mixed communities, where such relationships were more common. A young human woman approached him nervously. She was holding hands with a being from a species Teeman did not recognize. "You are Teeman, right?" she asked. "The first?" "I do not know about first," Teeman said. "But yes, I am Teeman. I wanted to thank you," she said. "When my partner and I decided to bond, our families were against it. Both of them. But then we showed them the recordings of your bonding ceremony. We showed them how the Ve'alathi Council accepted you. It gave us the courage to fight for our relationship. And eventually, our families came around." Teeman felt a lump in his throat. "I am glad we could help." "You did more than help," the woman said. "You showed everyone that it is possible. That love matters more than species. That family is what we make it." After she left, Narration came over and took his hand. "She is right, you know. We did something important. We just lived our lives, Teeman protested. Sometimes that is enough, Narray said. Sometimes just living your life honestly and loving openly is the most revolutionary thing you can do. Lyra ran up to them with 3 other children in tow, all from mixed families. We are going to play zero-gravity tag in the recreation area. Can I go? Be careful, Narray and Teeman said at the same time. Then they laughed Dot as Lyra ran off with their friends. Teeman put his arm around Narray. Her pregnancy was showing now, and she glowed brighter than